When I was asked to talk, thinking about what my profession is, I'm actually many things. Obviously, a mother, a wife, homemaker, I'm an artist. The thing I'd like to talk about tonight is I'm also an ovarian cancer survivor. I'm going to talk a little bit about my art, but also about my ovarian cancer and the experience that I had with that. These are some of my paintings, just to give you a little idea of my work. God does touch my life every day, but really in a special way when I was ill. I was diagnosed with advanced ovarian cancer when I was 32. Our son was 3.5, and kind of came out of the blue. I was very surprised about the whole thing, and that's why the little thing says, "Why me?" We had had difficulty in conceiving a family, and all of a sudden it was like, haven't we been through enough? Why cancer now? And I remember my husband, grabbed me, hugged me, and said, "Why not us? We have great faith, we have a great marriage, we'll get through this, it's all right." And that night, being scared to death, what are you going to do with a 3.5-year-old, and you've got this horrible diagnosis. They had done surgery, and they had to go back in, it was about 10 days later, to do additional surgery, to do a complete, hysterectomy, check the cancer out, and that whole thing. And my experience was that night, I really placed myself in God's arms. I don't share this story very often because it is very personal, but I just, kind of felt like I wanted to be in God's arms and trust Him. And oh my gosh, it was a beautiful feeling. If that's what heaven is like, holy cow. Just very peaceful, very comforting. And then me being impatient, I couldn't savor the moment very long. I asked, am I going to live or die? And next thing I know, thrust out back into the real world like a nothing flat. And you know how you try to recapture that if you have a good dream? Recapture that feeling, recapture that sense of comfort and love and being taken care of. Couldn't get it back. I couldn't. It was like, okay, I guess I'm meant to live. And from that moment on, I really never doubted that I was supposed to live. I didn't worry about it. Went through the treatments, went through the cancer stuff. It was kind of interesting because a year later, when I was deemed cancer-free at my 3-month checkup, my husband said, well, during your surgery, the surgeon came out and just told me alone that to get your things together, that you would be dead by Christmas. And this was in April. I had a very aggressive form of ovarian cancer. It attacked a bunch of lymph nodes that they couldn't get to. But, God bless him, he never told me that I was meant to die. So I trusted in God, that I was meant to hang in there and hang on. Cancer came back. I know I look pretty healthy, but all through these years, my health has been a struggle. I've had a number of major abdominal surgeries, internal bleeding, just all kinds of complications from being so young and being treated so aggressively. But still fighting and kicking. In April will be my 19th anniversary of the cancer. Ironically, I was diagnosed, believe it or not, Good Friday, Easter weekend, that whole kind of thing. It was interesting. My doctor was Jewish, and it was his Passover, and just the timing always made me really identify with the passion. And the gift from that, and I have another story too. I'll get into the art and then I can talk about both. I was trained as a medical illustrator, had my own graphic design business, advertising agency, and then when I was diagnosed with the recurrence of the cancer 2 years after the initial treatment, I kind of was trying to figure out what in the world God was telling me to do. I really had no clue. So I started pursuing watercolor art and kind of got into wild florals and happy things, and began to show and sell my artwork, which is always kind of a little bit of a challenge for me given health issues. I can't do weekend shows or things like that. But the one show I did do this fall, I had an interesting reaction. It was a hot show, middle of August. I had sat there all day, and lots of people had come and gone and said your work is beautiful, but that Saturday night I still hadn't sold anything. And towards the end of the night, this guy came in, and he was not what I would expect the type to buy flowers, let's put it that way. He wasn't just didn't, you kind of look at people and say, well, are they going to be interested or not? But anyway, he wound up saying, well, I'll be back. And he did come back, and he spent, a decent amount of money, gave me $325 in cash. How many people walk around with that? Bought a painting. and said that, you know, thank you, because I'm an artist, I was in my studio all day and just stuck, and I couldn't, you know, I needed inspiration, and your painting provided inspiration.
Oh.
So, you know, it's just a funny thing. Back to the gifts, and they really, the two stories are kind of all interconnected because it is a part of who I am. That being in God's arms and that trust and that faith, I mean, it was really a hands-on experience, and it was a gift because how many times do you actually get to feel that one-on-one? And we know God's there, we know He's around, but when you actually call on Him to ask Him for help, how often does He actually answer the way we want Him to? It's always a different kind of answer, and He just really gave me what I needed to hear. And I've had that trust since, and it's been a rocky road. It's kind of a day-to-day thing, and that gift is to have been so sick and to have been through so many surgeries. It has really given me a deeper understanding of the cross. I mean, the cross that so many people have, and so many people have with illness, isolation, pain, all that. You know, it has, thanks be to God, I feel like I'm a little bit more of a compassionate person, reaching out to those who can't, you know, who are isolated by illness. It's a horrible thing, you know, it's just, when you can't get up and move and get around the way you want to get around, and when you're young, I mean, I was 32, and all of a sudden going through chemos, losing my hair twice, you know, you have so many pokes and prods and surgeries and all that. So it's going through suffering makes you understand suffering and identify. You know, I think just the way society is, it tends to, you know, kind of, I don't know, neutralize suffering, make it not a part of things. You look at the media, everything is so happy, fix this, fix that. Difficulties are part of our life. And so that was very much a gift. And I do have to say that the cancer was a gift, because I know I wouldn't be the person that I am today without that gift of that. And the art stuff, you know, I'm generally a happy person and, you know, grateful to God. But you can look at some of the paintings, you see some of the darker sides, and that kind of all helped, you know, the lights and the darks, the contrast, the good, the bad. And when people see my art, it's always interesting being an artist, because it doesn't appeal to everybody. In fact, the guys in my life are like, can you paint anything else besides flowers? Well, you know, flowers are in me now. That's what it is. Although I am shifting in a different direction. But art touches people, and we need art. We need bright things. We need that reconnection away from technology. And you see that in the reaction. One of the first shows I did was kind of funny. It was an outdoor show. It rained the night before. We were in the mud the whole bit. One of my paintings there was a lot quieter. It was like a kind of a desolate beach scene. And a woman came up and stood in front of it and started crying. I was like, oh no, what do you do? This is not in the manuals. How do you handle this? And, you know, so I went up and asked her to said a prayer. What am I supposed to do? And said, you know, are you okay? And she nodded her head and kept crying. I said, do you need anything? No. I said, would you like a hug? And she's like, yeah. So I gave her a hug, and she bought the piece. Never heard from her again, but somehow art touched someplace in her soul, and it's I don't know, it's really been a gift. It's been a gift to share that, to be able to do that, to have the time to do that. You know, God's there every minute of the day with that, you know, just offering it up and working, and the people that you meet and talking about it. I was warned I'd probably talk too fast, but I think that's really about all. I'm kind of, if anybody has any questions. Yes?
Do you paint from photograph, or just from memory, or just from views of different things?
Kind of a combination of both. I have a stack of photographs, and if I decide to start painting, I'll go through them, pick a piece, the colors that kind of appeal to me, and I'll start with that, and then put it by the wayside and just kind of create my own things.
What hospital were you at with all your operations?
Oh, I've hit them, most of them. Let's see. Yeah, let's see. Highland Park Hospital I started at. Then I was at Northwestern, and the oncologist and I had a difference of opinion when I recurred. And I've been treated great at all the hospitals, but he just said, you know, recurrent ovarian cancer, we'll just give you some chemo, there's not much we can do. So that was another blessing, because I walked in, and we all know how it is to transfer medical records. I walked into Northwestern that day, and I had already had a second opinion scheduled at Loyola, and asked the lady behind the desk if she could copy pertinent information so I could bring it to this new oncologist. And she did. So I could walk, because he said, you know, oh, it's after Christmas, we'll do it after Christmas. If you've got cancer, nothing's going to change, don't worry about it. Well, you know, at 35, you really don't want to hear that. But he was operating based on what statistics showed. And so the next day I had an appointment I met my current gynec, who is he was at Loyola, and then he moved up to Lutheran General. So I've got a number of doctors at Northwestern and some at Lutheran General. So.
What advice do you have? You're the recipient of this illness, and it's a very serious illness. And then there are people who are on the periphery who see you, but what advice do you have to a person about how to react to a person like in your situation?
You know, Jeff, that is a great question. We all need to know that. That is like another whole topic of how to deal with it, because I think our natural instinct is to say, I don't want to bother them. So nobody calls, and they think everybody else is calling. You know, and in this day of cell phones and phone machines, they can turn it off if they're resting. I mean, it is so isolating to be so sick, to be so young. There's tons of support groups and things like that, but it's not like, well, if you need me, just call. No one's going to call. I mean, I would never pick up the phone and bother somebody, because the last thing you want to do when you're vulnerable like that is be rejected. So, you know, you say, hey, I'm at the store right now. Do you need milk? Do you need eggs? And you bring it over. Or, you know, making a meal is great, but keeping somebody company. I mean, there was with the internal bleeding, I had real low anemia, and I couldn't do anything. And I still remember one dear friend who came over. Somebody had made us a great dinner with tons of chicken and on the bone, and I was too weak to even pull the chicken off the bone. And God bless her, she sat there and pulled the chicken off the bone and visited with me and vacuumed the house. Oh no, your husband will want to come home and have the house vacuumed. You know, the things you can't do for yourself. So there's a lot of tricks. Anybody need to talk? I mean, I've got a bunch of them. Yes?
I'm sorry, I got here a little late, so you might have addressed this, but did you have that complete trust in God before you got the cancer, or was this, you know, did the cancer bring that?
You know, it was kind of a combination. I had started on my faith journey before the cancer. We had difficulty conceiving a family, and that just freaked me out. I wanted a lot of kids, and my husband and I then had started going back to Mass. And went on a retreat, you know, Opus Dei. I learned about Opus Dei through that. Went on a retreat and really started to understand that my plan for my life wasn't necessarily God's plan for my life. I mean, it's a process of accepting it. I still get very frustrated, quite frankly, because there are things that I want to do that I just physically can't. Of course, that's the other thing that probably keeps me alive, because I keep pushing instead of just, you know, crawling into a hole. But the faith really deepened through the cancer experience, because you're just so helpless and so out of control. You have to control, you have to let someone else be in control. And you realize that, you know, gee, maybe my vocation is to talk to the nurses and ask them about their lives. And I've got a great relationship with all my nurses and doctors because of that. Yeah, I don't know. It's just my plan wasn't God's plan, and He obviously knows better. So. Yes.
Were you able to do your art while you were sick, or did that come later?
That came later. I did the medical illustration and the graphic design, and it's so funny how timing is and technology is. I was diagnosed in '92, and I had my own design business, although it was kind of waning a little bit. In the year that I had to take off, because I really was very sick with back-to-back surgeries and the chemo and all that, that's when computers came to the forefront. I missed all that. And as a graphic designer, I had a choice. Did I want to get back into that and get into that craziness and build up clients, or did I want to concentrate on my health? So I didn't do that, and then the cancer recurred 2 years later. And at that point, when I started getting better, actually got involved with a national organization called the National Ovarian Cancer Coalition, and I'm one of the co-founders of the Ovarian Cancer Walk for the Whisper, so that was my creative energy there, but at the same time I thought, you know what, I really should pursue the art, but it was a different art than I had done before, so it was fun.
And why flowers?
I don't know, they're happy, they're bright, they're colorful, you just kind of want to jump into them, I don't know. I've started to do a little bit more with landscapes now, but blessed with a lot of good training and teaching, being a medical illustrator, being very precise, being very exact. So I've got composition and stuff like that down pretty well just from just years of training. And just the colors of flowers always intrigued me, and the brightness and the happiness in spring. And I don't know. Did you have a question?
Are you a committed adorer?
I'm sorry?
Are you a committed adorer?
I am.
How has that helped you accept your particular cross?
If I do not go to daily mass, pray daily, pray the Holy Rosary, put myself in Our Lady's hands, I try to spend a good half hour to an hour in mental prayer a day. Just kind of getting God's perspective on life, listening to Him. It's so easy to scuttlebutt here and there. And the Adoration Chapel just kind of enhances that experience, being right before the Blessed Sacrament. So, yeah, reading, anything I can do to kind of keep that connection with God.
And don't you think that your art is the connection with God?
It isn't in a more doing kind of sense, but I think for me, if I do too much, I can lose sight of that talking to Him. It's easy to, it's easy to talk to Him. It's awfully hard to listen. It's hard to just be quiet. We're in this, I remember when I first started trying to do mental prayer, I set a timer and went into the living room. And 10 minutes was about all I can handle, and then it gradually got more and more, and as you find out, you just start talking to Him, you find out you have more and more to say, and you just need more and more time. So.
When you said that you identified with Christ's passion, is there any particular part for you that is a consolation to you, or empathy for what He went through?
All of it is. To me, the sorrowful mysteries, the agony in the garden. Here He had all of His buddies, the disciples, and they couldn't even hang with Him for that time. And then, obviously, the scourging at the pillar. You go through this stuff, and it's painful. It's not, you're nauseated. Especially when I had to decide, when I had the recurrence, I thought, what in the world is the point? Why I went through the most toughest chemo. You did complete surgery on me. Why would I go through this again? And that's one of those things I really had to offer up to God. But all of it, the loneliness, not the humiliation necessarily, but people don't understand if you look healthy, how really rotten you feel inside, because you're only out when you feel good. Carrying of the cross, well, daily, sometimes for a lot of people that have illnesses, especially cancer, daily it's like getting up and going through it again, and going to the doctor again, and I just had an iron transfusion. I have to get IV iron because of the internal bleeding last Monday. It's like, why am I doing this again? It's very exhausting. I get pricked with all the things, and they miss the veins. I'm sure you've all been through that, and that's a lot like Christ on the cross. Nothing close to it, but you get the idea. Yeah, so many things. Is it my time's up?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, everybody.